What is up, guys? Rick Tough Love Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be discussing everyone's favorite game mode, Trials of Osiris, because only a few weeks after Season of the Worthy has begun for Destiny 2, the main, massively anticipated event that is front and center for this new season, Trials, it's not doing too well. Already, it's not doing too well. We're going to dive into exactly what is going on and really talk about a lot of the key reasons behind why Trials is struggling, why all of this hype and anticipation just didn't really pan out, and some of the things that Bungie can do to address this and fix this in the future. Trials of Osiris, Bungie has stated, unequivocally is a permanent feature. It's not going away at the end of the season. So we should not give up on this activity, and it was absolutely incredible in Destiny 1. This is something that can really be a huge reason that people are logging on every weekend to try to have a crack at, and the fact that it's not is pretty sad. So what exactly is going on? Well, let's break down the numbers. This is coming from warmind.io, and it tracks where players are spending their time. So I went on it in a Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. on Sunday, which should be bumping for Trials. Maybe you'd have a little bit of a spike on that Friday, the first day of Trials, but normally the weekends are where Trials sees the vast majority of the people spending their time in this activity. And here's the breakdown. Overall, only 9% of the player base was at that moment within Trials of Osiris. It's actually getting beaten by Crucible and Iron Banner, and Patrol. Remember, this is still a free-to-play game. However, also remember, Trials is available to all players, not just players who have purchased the Season of the Worthy. So if you are a free-to-play player, you can play Trials. You just have to be 960 light. That's really the only requirement, but that's why Patrol is so big. It's just people kind of out in the world doing whatever. But these numbers shock me. Like, Trials was such a huge part of the pie. Trials basically would replace Patrol in Destiny 1 for how big of a chunk of the player base was engaged in it on a given weekend. Trials would bring in like millions of players across all platforms with Destiny 1. So this is crazy. And the overall graph doesn't even show like how bad it is. This is the average between PlayStation, Xbox, Google Stadia actually, and PC. But if we actually take a look at specifically PC, we can see it's even lower. Trials is only sitting at 7%, and Strikes is beating it with, they both say 7%, but Strikes has a tiny bit more. More people are grinding Strikes. More people are doing Nightfalls than playing Trial. That blows my mind. Like, just to even comprehend how many of the people in your friends list are going and grinding Nightfalls on a random Sunday. It shouldn't be that much. Apparently it's more than are playing Trials. So that's not good. Like, this is not a random weekend either. This is the weekend that the sniper rifle, the brand new Trials sniper rifle, which has some pretty great rolls, especially the one I'm thinking of, the one I'm going for is Quick Draw, and then also Vorpal to shut down supers. It can get that. It just became available this weekend, so this should be a huge time when people are going for that weapon, and it's just not. So, what the heck is going on? Well, I think a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction to that is, well, it's too hard. It's too difficult. I go in there and I get stomped, and it's super unfair. And I see where people are coming from, but here's the thing. Not every single player should be capable of getting every single piece of loot. There are players going into Trials right now with blue weapons who do not want to improve at the game, and do not want to get a different team. They don't want to get different gear. They don't want to do anything. They hop in there, they lose, they get mad, and they create a Reddit post about how much the game sucks. There are those people out there, and they are constantly thinking that everything in the game should be in their account as soon as they log on. Unfortunately, this is so far beyond that. You're always going to hear negativity from that group of people that don't understand that aspirational content needs to exist. In theory, you go into Trials, you lose a couple times. Maybe that first weekend, you get to 3 wins. Maybe the second weekend, the map isn't for you, you can only get to 2 wins, it doesn't work out. The next weekend, you change your loadout, the map is more to your liking, you get to 5 wins. You keep working, you keep improving, you keep finding better teammates, or you get more and more in sync with your current team. You guys are on another level in terms of communication, and then a month down the line, you go flawless, you get to the lighthouse. That, on paper, in theory, is how Trials is supposed to work. How it's working right now, however, is people are going in, getting destroyed, getting absolutely nothing, and just coming out the other end super, super disappointed. And it's not just the people going in with blue weapons. It is average players. It is above average players. It is good players. I've seen really good players just get super frustrated and be like, yeah, I'm done with Trials, man. I'm not playing this weekend, or I don't want to do anymore. I'm done with this. Like, good, talented players are just done with this game mode already. And that's when you know you got a problem. So what is going on? Like, why is Destiny 2 Trials seemingly so much more sweaty, so much more competitive than Destiny 1 Trials? The matchmaking shouldn't be an issue. A lot of people are quick to call, oh, skill-based matchmaking, bring it back, bring it into Trials. I think that kind of destroys the spirit of Trials. Matching based on your wins means that you can have a super sweaty match, or you can have a really easy match. And it makes it so that as your ascent to the lighthouse grows, the matches get harder and harder. It feels more and more intense. That whole feeling is the spirit of Trials, and I think that just changing the matchmaking honestly doesn't solve the massive issues we have going on here. But again, what is going on? Because this was the same matchmaking as in D1. Why is it sweatier now? Token farming. This has become the crux of a lot of the issues going on with Trials. Here's what's going on. People have figured out that there really isn't a huge incentive to go flawless. We'll talk about that in a sec, but aside from some materials and a powerful piece of armor that's functionally identical to other Warmind armor, aside from maybe the armor stat value might be higher, yeah, that's all you're really gonna get. What you really want is the god rolls of the weapons, especially stuff like the shotgun and the sniper. There's some powerful weapons in the loot pool for sure. Now, to get those, you just gotta mindlessly farm tokens. Like so many other activities, unfortunately. I really wish Bungie could have, for once, thought outside the box and had a different system rather than just turning in tokens, because this token thing is not going well. Because what players have figured out they can do is simply grab the passage that gives more tokens, win the first 3 games, reset your card. Win the first 3 games, reset your card, rinse and repeat. That way, you're going to get easier matches because it's going to be other people on their first 1, 2, and 3 games. And that's making it a scenario where if you're an average player, you just go in there with a team, you guys should probably get to like 4 wins. Like, just statistically, it shouldn't be that hard to get to 3 or more wins. It just shouldn't be. But the problem is that your toughest matches are matches 1, 2, and 3 because you're running into the absolute hardcore sweaty players just resetting their passages for tokens, and that is not creating a good environment. So how can you fix this? Well, I think the long-term solution is better rewards for flawless, specifically adept weapons. A lot of people get very scared when you talk about adept weapons because, oh no, they have an intrinsic perk, so you're getting the best players, the best loot, and they're getting even better so they can stomp faster. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, if you get an Astral Horizon with Quick Draw opening shot, and then the adept version also has Grave Robber or armor piercing rounds or some super minor intrinsic perk, it doesn't have to be intense. There's going to be almost no difference between those 2 pieces of loot. In Destiny 1, for years of Destiny 1, we had this system, and it was never a huge difference between the adept and normal loot, and the normal loot could compete just fine. But what adept loot really does, and how you should be looking at it, is that it makes all of the hardcore players focus solely on that, because I can sit here and tell you it's going to be 95% the same adept versus normal loot, but just because it's that 5% better, hardcores will chase the crap out of adept weapons. Like, honestly, they will. And so then you're taking the hardcore players out of just grinding 1 to 3 for tokens and moving them more towards the lighthouse. So that way, the more average players, their 1 to 3 games are going to be a lot easier, and they'll start finding hardcores maybe at around their 5th or 6th match, but not when they've just started. And that same philosophy of moving the hardcore players further towards the flawless goal. And guys, this is a real thing. Like, think about it. You're missing out if you're just resetting on match 4, 5, 6, and 7 and just doing 1, 2, 3. So more than 50% of the card is missed out on. You're just resetting after 3. If you can just make the hardcore players go for flawless every time, again, your chances of encountering them have just halved. More than halved, actually, statistically. So it is a big deal. And another way you can achieve this is just scaling tokens. Have the first 3 wins award 3 tokens, and then from 4 to 6, it's 5 tokens, and then 7 is 10 tokens, and flawless is a full 20 tokens or whatever. Like, the values don't matter, but if you get more and more and more tokens for going up, then you'll find people staying away from just resetting after a few wins, and they're all duking it out at 5 or 6 wins instead of 1 to 3. And that's another viable solution. There's also been some ideas of, hey, you can't reset your passage until you've had a loss. And of course that means that you can just throw a game. It also means that at least someone wins in that scenario. But it's also the issue of, why do you need 3 wins before you can start turning in tokens? And more to the point, why the heck are people's tokens disappearing? Because here's where that makes no sense. I actually tweeted out to say that I loved that system, that the tokens would disappear because it would let you farm more specifically after the gear you actually wanted. Well, it turns out I massively embarrassed myself because I was totally wrong. The system works nothing like that. I thought that, the first weekend we had the rocket launcher, the fusion rifle, and the scout rifle. And you could only get those things. Once you earned them, you would unlock it basically to get via tokens. So if you got to 7 wins, and you got all 3 of those things, and then you start spamming tokens, you could only get one of those 3 things. I assumed that the next weekend, whatever 3 things were available then, it would work the same way. You could only get those things. Why else would your tokens disappear? It turns out that's absolutely not the case. In fact, you're punished for playing more. Because of course, the second weekend, the absolute god tier shotgun came out. Well, it turns out that people that didn't play the first weekend and just got to 3 wins and turned in all their tokens, they could only get that god tier shotgun. They had a huge advantage. So the people who played more, their loot table was more polluted with crap they didn't want. What the heck? But also, if I'm turning in my tokens for the second and third weekend, and I'm getting loot from the first weekend, why are my tokens disappearing? It doesn't make any sense. And so you have so many people that are going into trials and are doing what I talked about earlier in the video. They're legitimately trying to improve. They're legitimately trying to change the loadouts and adapt to the map. And they maybe didn't get a lot of wins, and then they got 1 win, and then they're getting 2 wins consistently, but they just can't get that 3rd win, and they're just getting screwed because of it, because they have like 30 tokens, but by the end of the weekend, they can't get their 3rd win, and their tokens disappear. Or, almost just as worse, the first reward is something crappy, like the scout rifle that no one really wants, and so the only thing they can get is a loot piece they don't really want. And this wasn't the case in Destiny 1. You had a bounty system that allowed you to complete bounties and get the normal loot. But of course, because there's no adept weapons, Bungie has got to be a lot more strict, or at least in their mind, with how the loot is parceled out. Like, normally, they'd be able to be pretty generous with the normal Trials loot because you'd have the adept loot that was acquired in the hardcore way. But because that doesn't exist, everything's got to be hardcore for some reason. So I think, for goodness sakes, at least let people save their tokens so that even if they're losing, they don't lose their tokens every weekend, so that they can stock up on tokens, and then if they do keep at it and improve, and then they get that 3 win at a good weekend and, you know, have access to, let's say, the summoner auto rifle, they can start dumping their tokens and get a god roll, and at least they now have a better piece of loot to help them do even better. Wait, this is the whole spirit of Trials. And the fact that it isn't implemented like that just makes, in my opinion, no sense. And the last thing that's really hurting Trials is the reason it's played less than strikes in the middle of the weekend on PC specifically. And that is the fact that the hackers, cheaters, and error codes are out of control. Like, honestly, the amount of beaver errors you get on PC is astounding. I tuned in to watch my boy Mtash for I was in his stream for 20 minutes. He just finished up a flawless card and he just wanted to play like one more game of Rumble before getting off for the night. He got beaver error coded 3 times when I was there. I was there for 20 minutes and he got 3 error codes. And this is just insane because if you get error coded, there's no way to rejoin your teammates. You're just screwed. Like, there's a loss, bud. There's nothing you can do about it. There's also just, my Twitter feed is full of blatant cheaters. I have seen people fly around, like God mode, literally fly, like unlimited control, like Minecraft creative mode, fly around with fully automatic snipers shooting at 1,000 rounds per minute with unlimited ammo. So that's not normal. The leaderboards are also filled with people with like 97, 98% sniper rifle accuracy. I've played with some absolutely cracked players from like G1 and BSK and stuff, and they just hit sniper shots you wouldn't believe. And they don't have anywhere near a 90% like hit accuracy with the Revoker or whatever. So how are these people on the leaderboards getting 95% accuracy with a sniper? It's because they're using an aimbot. And of course, I do feel sorry for Bungie in this position because of the pandemic. So Bungie's all working from home. I'm sure they'd be more on top of this if they were just in a normal position at the studio. But it doesn't change the fact that this is still such a massive issue. So, I mean, things are just not going well for Trials right now. And it feels bad because if you don't enjoy Trials, there's really not much else to do. This is definitely not a PvE-oriented season. And, you know, I'm a PvE guy, but even me, like, considering how many PvE-oriented seasons there were before, I knew that, hey, this is going to be for the PvP guys. But to have basically nothing else other than Trials is definitely disappointing. And I also feel like another issue is that if you look at the loot from the PvE side of things, if you look at the Seraph weapons, do any of those drag you into Trials? No, because none of them are that good for PvP, except for maybe the shotgun because it can get quick draw Vorpal, that's a thing. But aside from that, none of them have really insane PvP rolls. Honestly, like the auto rifle should be a 600 RPM auto with some great rolls. The sidearm should be much better than it is. The hand cannon should be a 150, very competitive hand cannon, because then what you're doing is you're letting the PvP players go out and grind those Seraph weapons and then realize, oh wait, crap, this hand cannon's a 150 and has some incredible rolls. I got the god roll. This would be really good in PvP. And then you lure them into Trials with that. But as it stands now, you're not luring any PvE players. You're not tempting any PvE players with the PvE loot that's currently available. Why is the 4th Horseman being added for this reason? Like, it's not good in Trials. This would be the season to add back the Hawkmoon. If you're gonna add the Hawkmoon, I've seen 1,567 clickbait videos on the Hawkmoon. This is the season to do it and have it be cracked in PvP and have the PvE players have that exotic and be like, you know what? I'm gonna try this in Trials this weekend. Tempt them in there. Right now, you're not motivating anyone. And so guys, it's 4 in the morning, I'm hopped up on Advanced GG, and I just needed to share my thoughts on the matter, need to get this off my chest. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, found it interesting, enjoyed the discussion. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.